Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I'm your host, Paul O'Need, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down with someone who I met this weekend and honestly hit it off with way better than I could have ever imagined. Justin Kavanaugh. Justin is the CEO of AthleteHQ. He's the author of the book Man Up. He's a strength coach, he's a mentor, he's a business owner, entrepreneur, and a lot more other things than I can possibly put into an intro. So I'll maybe let him intro himself. Did I do a good job?
I think so. Shit, it always sounds better on paper. I tell people, as a funny story about intros, my girl I dated in high school, we went to my All-American game when I played, and she goes, "Apparently, I'm dating a stud." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's apparently here. Justin Kavanaugh, 6'2", 225 pounds, and runs a 4.40. I don't know who that is, but apparently, I'm dating him. And for those that don't know, I am not 6'2", and I don't have a six pack, but I was an All-American, so I'll take it. But yeah, long and short, I am born and raised in Miami. I was a five-sport athlete, had a lot of success growing up on the sports side. I learned early on that sports was going to be kind of my gateway drug to doing the right thing and not having to worry about drugs, violence, or making the wrong decision. That led me on a path to coaching. I got forced into coaching early on. I think people ask me, and it's so great that you started at the top and like you got a chance to work with these pros and Olympians. I think it's the most vulnerable place to be because as a coach, my job was not developmental. My job was not figuring it out. My job was not fucking it up. That was my
Yeah.
job. I cannot screw it up because I was handed opportunities that I wasn't prepared for. My competency level was not even close to the confidence that people had in me, and it was really don't mess it up. My first Olympian went on to medal in 2004. My first pro client went on to get drafted, and then ever since there it was stay in that world because I really do well in the high performance world,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't do well in the general population, just interested in kind of lifestyle changes. I like having skin in the game, and for the last 21 years I've always had skin in the game. And I'll tell people I coached as soon as I could, and I will coach as long as I can. The day I stop coaching is the day that my athlete steps in the ring, puts his hand on the line, and is ready to go in whatever sport that is. And I do not have butterflies and I'm not nervous. I'm done. Because that means that it didn't mean the same. It doesn't mean the same to me anymore.
I think that was one of the first things that I asked you when we met this weekend was, do you still coach athletes? And you said, I'll always coach athletes. And that really resonated with me because, regardless of what businesses I have, what other services I provide, I will always be a coach first and foremost. And while the population that I've coached has changed over time, whether, going from NCAA Division 1 to CIS in Canada to, even, disabled populations prior to starting Master Athletic Performance and now mostly powerlifters and Gen Pop, I'm still going to be a coach. And
Yeah.
everything I do is coaching.
It's
And
hard to take someone that is in their blood. Like that's who you are.
yeah,
The discipline and the medium of how you get that through that message across, that doesn't matter, but who you are to the core is someone who's is pouring into others. And in order to do that, in order to fill your cup up, you're going to have to continue to pour into other people because that's your almost internal challenge. So you're going to get bored, probably knowing being around you, you'll get bored when the stakes are not there, when there's no one to coach. If it's just a computer screen, that's not who you are.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. And it's funny you mentioned the not having butterflies in your stomach. And when we were on the panel, we were asked, what the hardest point in our career was. And I mentioned how I got burnt out at one point. And I never got burnt out from coaching. I got burnt out from the situation around the coaching and the environment that I was in. But just like you said, when you didn't have the butterflies, the way I described it when I spoke to the teams, I was like, I am not in a place mentally where I can give to you. I have no more in me to give to you. And it's not fair for me to keep coaching you.
I think what happens is when the environment strips us of our passion, It's
Yeah.
not that you don't have any more to give them. It's that they are not willing to receive it. So it burns you out. When someone is rejecting you because of what is in their best interest, you start to lose that drive. But that has nothing to do with you as a coach or as a man losing that fire and not having more to give them. It's that you had more to give them than they were willing to receive. And that's when that moment you needed to kind of graduate from that experience.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it. I like that perspective. Um, okay, let's talk about, you said coaching is in my blood. It's obviously in your blood. We started speaking off air and it prompted me to start the podcast because I think it's something that we absolutely need to talk about because our audience on this podcast is mostly coaches. And when we talk about your identity as a coach and how you portray that to the world, the first thing that comes to my mind is obviously in the people that you work with. But I think the way that you convey that to the public is through social media, is through your content generation. And what you mentioned, maybe just repeated about, if what you said, doing what I do has worked for 21 years, why would I change it? Right. Now you see people adopting almost these personas for
Yeah.
social media rather than just being uniquely themselves. Maybe
Yeah,
speak a little bit to that.
I think the world is craving authenticity because we're in a world where it's so easy to be superficial and you're not deep. But I don't like to have shallow conversations. I like to have deep conversations because that's where the results drive all the way down into the relationships. And again, you could talk about like the things that are seen at the surface level. Everyone could see that. So it's just a matter of, is my six pack better than yours? Is my lift better than yours, heavier than yours? Is my speed faster than yours? That's the superficial level, which means that people are going to be attracted to the results. Well, everyone's going to have results then which they could market. And then at the next level, it's going to be resiliency. You're building a level of resiliency within that relationship as you go deeper, because that's a little bit more on the tangible stuff. You're really building it. But the intangible stuff is the deep stuff that you feel, which is the relationship, right? Which is the work that you're trying to build. So I don't like to have superficial conversations. I'm not great at the small talk. Am I good in social situations? Absolutely. But my strategy for being good in social situations is by going deep to the core, to the root of people, and figuring out what drives them. So where I think we've gone like off, where we've kind of fell off track in this world, is two phases, right? You have the coach that is completely incompetent or immature or not ready yet or too young, that is embodying the presence of someone who's had the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then they act as if. However, I do believe there's a lot of value in someone acting as if, because if someone acts as if and they believe it and they do it, they will start to become it, right? You are the thoughts, you are the actions that you put in on a daily basis. However, when you build this persona and you're living off of the handful of superficial testimonials and you're living off of adopting someone else's personality, you start to lose who you are. And then you're actually on your way to become something that you don't even like. So there's this group of people in the earlier stages that see the success that's happening, and they say, I got a secret to this. The only person in the world that could teach you these things, yet I haven't done enough to actually be that. That's one category. The other category, which I think our world is going too far into, is guys who are actually pretty damn good coaches. And at one point, they were good dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they stopped coaching. And when you stop coaching, you lose yourself a little bit. A good friend of mine, Coach Nicole Rodriguez, is one of the best coaches I know. And I will tell anybody that she's one of the very few people in the world of speed or sports performance that could coach circles around me. And I don't say that about anybody because my ego's, hard to fit in the room too. However, she is that good. And
Yeah.
one of the things that she told me, she goes, hey, Kav, I think what it is they stop coaching and then they lose who they are. So they're still trying to seek and find themselves. But while they're doing that, they're kind of personality hopping. And I started to think a little bit and I started to build on that topic because it sat with me of like, man, I like that person. They were a good dude. They're a good coach. Well, why do they have to act that way? And the reason why they're acted that way is because the insecurity is public.
Mm.
It's constantly public. And that insecurity is just out there. And they never felt like they were good enough as a coach, and they actually were. So in order to kind of cover that up, they had to start something else. They had to become the expert in this, and they had to be the expert at that, and they have to be the expert at this. It's like, look, man, just be you. I mean, have I coached a lot of powerlifters? Yes, but you will never hear me telling the world that. Have I worked with bodybuilders? Yes, but you will never see me telling the world that. If I got a real bodybuilder that I need to work with, I'm talking to literally Justin Harris, or I'm talking to Ben Mayfield, depending on where they are in the world. That's it. Why am I going to try to be somebody that I'm not? That's not my jam. So I go to the person that I trust, that I think is better than me at it. And now it makes me look better, because you're gonna associate me with the value of the expertise in which I'm connecting you with, instead of trying to say that, hey, I'm a physicist too. Like, I'm not. So stop pretending and start positioning yourself with somebody with a level of authority that just does what they do. And I happen to be somebody that knows my lane, and then I just connect those dots. That's all I do. So I think that there's a big gap in the industry from their insecurities. And yeah, I mean, most people put on a lot of muscle and they put on a lot of strength because they've gotten bullied or they have insecurities. So they start doing those things. And when they do that, and then they turn into business, then they have to become something else because of those insecurities. So it just evolves, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of the most insecure people I know are powerlifters and bodybuilders. So you're in a great conversation, Paul. How are we going deep here?
I love it. I mean, these are the kind of conversations that I live for, because I, like you, I'm notorious for getting into these small talk conversations and then asking that one question that pushes the person too far. And they're like, whoa, I wasn't ready for this.
Yeah. I think the cool part about that is that's when you know if you're going to work, it's going to work or not. So I'm a big believer that you don't know where someone's loyalty lies until there's a chance for them to not be loyal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, I'm super loyal to you. Like, I believe in you. You're my guy. And then there's a little bit of adversity. And that's actually when you find out. So loyalty doesn't exist until you find out it's actually broken. And with that, it's also, how do you push someone's buttons? The fastest way to find out who someone is put them in an adversity situation.
Yeah. Hold their feet.
Because we're going to find out where they're going to go.
Yeah. You find out if they're going to sink or swim. And the idea of, having confidence in who you are grants you the ability to have humility, right? To ask for help. Because if I know where I am in my lane and I can't help someone do something, I got a list of referrals as long as I need it to be to find someone that can help that person. And I think
absolutely
you save yourself a lot of, one, liability, but two, time, frustration, and your reputation by referring out. I love it. Like when I'm speaking to a young coach and the answer out of their mouth is, I don't know, but I can find out. I know that person's going to be okay.
It's a very mature statement that most young kids are not taught to do that, because they're not taught that that's okay.
Yeah.
And I would also say that it actually makes you look better, and you'll be invited into conversations more often if you're a young coach, be willing to do that, because then they go, man, he's willing to kind of hear me out. I think that one thing that people could take away from this is that high level people, they know if you're full of shit or not.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll just we give people enough rope to hang themselves. We give them a long leash and see if they get tangled into it. I kind of have fun with it. It's probably a bad trait personality wise, but I'm just warning you, we're going to be like, hey, cool. And I have people all the time like, oh, I know this guy. And I'll just be like, I'll take a picture with me and that person. And they'll be like, who's that? She's like, ooh, whoops. Yeah, no shit. And I think that the key is to understand that your skill, one of the greatest skills that you possess, is that you are unique. Yes. And that if you are rememberable, right? If you're not just a forgettable person, then people are going to count on you. I think reliability and dependability is something that a lot of young people do not have. And I think that if you actually just become a very dependable person, even if you're not like the highest competency, you're going to over time get there, because people are going to always rely on you if you're dependable. And if people are constantly relying on you, then over time, you're going to have more stripes on your belt than most people, which by default, that learning loop is just going to get closed more often. And you're going to have more experience, which is how you're going to develop wisdom. And then you're immediately going to be the guy that I trust with that one situation, because number one, you're always there. And then number two, at the end of the day, you're getting better. And people that we pour into, we like to see progress. And I learned this, right? So
Yeah.
for those that played football at a young age, if you want to get in the game at a young age, you're standing right behind your coach. Offense, boom, you're standing right behind the coach. Defense, you're standing right behind the coach. If you want to be in the game, who are they going to look to? Who are they going to look to when they need a body? And if you're there, at some point, they're just going to call your number. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing in life. If you're there, they're going to call your number. So sometimes just being in the environment and being somebody that is dependable is all you need.
Yeah.
The confidence in that other person referring you will happen over time. Don't try to jump the gun.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing that I made sure of over the weekend is like anyone who I met or I connected with, I sent them a message when I got home and I was like, hey, great to connect with you. Just not for any other reason other than just to fortify that relationship, to make sure that it was remembered. You're going to remember my name. You're going to remember the interaction that we had. And maybe in the future it leads to something. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe we just say hi to each other at conferences, but that's currency in my eyes.
Yeah. And for those that are listening, that's basically one of those like mic drop moments for him, because I don't do that well. And I'm like, my heart's sinking right now. I'm like, oh my God, I'm bad at that. And I appreciate almost not necessarily being called out on it, but understanding how valuable that is, because that's how we wouldn't be here right now
No,
if it
exactly.
weren't for some sort of proactive outreach, because I'm just too busy. And I don't mean to be busy in the sense of, oh, look at me, I'm doing a bunch of stuff. I'm busy in the sense that my focus is in an area where my values are and where my mission is, and I can't be distracted by that other stuff. But if somebody aligns with my path, like I'll jump right on board. Like I'll deviate because I know I'm going to get right back on track. But I almost can't do that voluntarily, because then I'll lose focus, right? I have to become a racehorse with blinders on. And I appreciate you, Paul, for doing that, because I honestly, I wouldn't have reached out. Like, I just know my personality well enough. And it's not meant, I swear to you, it's not an offense. And I know you don't take it that way, because you actually close that gap, but I know other people do. And that's probably your maturity, but that's also just the way that you operate. So I'm grateful for it, because these conversations wouldn't have taken place if it weren't for that.
So the way I looked at it, to be fair, is I've always had an earn your keep mentality. You have to earn your keep. You have to earn your seat at the table. Bro, you're at the table. You're at the head of the table. I'm that guy like starting to come up. And, you know, I was chatting with Matt Nickel, and he paid me some really over the top compliments I'm not sure I deserve. But anyway, he's like, you know, you have a level of coaching where, you know, you reach a level where you do something cool for yourself. Then you help other people do something cool. Then you teach other people how to do cool things, and then you help others reach your level. I'm at that level 4 where I'm trying to help others bridge that gap all the way up. But then there's people above and beyond that are pushing the limits of what this industry can do. And there were a few of them at the conference, and those are the people that I want to surround myself with. And I know that I'm the one who has to make the effort to do that, because I'm trying to get to their level. So if I have expectations that, oh, this guy didn't reach out to me because he's a pompous asshole, I'm not going to get anywhere in life, because I need to earn my keep. If I want to be around Kav, I got to put myself around Kav, right? So in that analogy that you made about coach athlete, man, you're the guy, so I'm going to be standing right behind the guy. And then if the guy turns around, I'm going to be right there.
Proximity is power. I'll give you an example. I had a number of people reach out to me and say, hey, I'd love to be around you for, you know, what you're doing, you know, here. You guys going to go teach us a seminar and this and that. I'm like, look, a client is in Europe. I say, hey, next week I'm going to be in Italy talking. I'll be in Amsterdam at a seminar. It's invite only, but I have a golden ticket because it's Hank's seminar and he only wants good people there. But I would love to invite you. And it's like probably an hour and 20 minutes away for this person, and it was just kind of like a mute response. And I'm like, hey man, I don't. That's kind of crazy to me, you know. Whereas like Owen Lacey is a good example in Ireland. And I'm like, dude, I've had like my Ireland trip canceled 5 times. And I'm like, now I'm like trying to make it happen. I'll do anything I can to get to that island because I want to be around that environment. Fun fact, when you brought up Matt Nickel, it's kind of funny because that's one of the coaches I actually did follow back up with and reach out to. I've been friends with Matt for a long time and we rarely get to connect other than Swiss. And I did not see him because I was on the stage 4 to 5 different times at Swiss, whether it be panels or speaking. And it's just an honor to kind of support Ken in any way I can, because I think that you got to respect the people that bring you to the show. And I was like, hey, man, Matt, like, I didn't even see you. Like, I'm at Serrano's. I thought you'd be there or whatever timing. And he's like, man, it is like that. And Matt has just this young mentality of pouring into people. He pours into people with the same passion that he did to his, young athletes that he does into young coaches. And it's something that I love, and it inspires me to continue to do that. But I think that there's a lot of parallels to that in the concept that we have with our athletes. I mean, I'm at the Olympic level now, and I'm at the pro level for quite some time. And we've built a saying of like, hey, I don't chase greatness. Greatness chases me. Because if that's my goal, if we're going to be great and we're going to be the establishment, then I can't be chasing you. You should be chasing me, because we're already at that level and people are going to set that standard. It has backfired in the past because our athletes, I'll be like, hey, hurry up, let's go chop chop. And they'll be like, hey, coach, you can't rush greatness. Can't rush greatness over here. But there's a lot of value to that, to understand that if I have to chase you, then my value to you is going to be diminished
for sure
based upon my focus. My focus is not going to be on what we need to accomplish. My focus is on the discipline to get you to be accountable to the work that is going to take for you to achieve that success. So where do you want my effort to be as a coach? Do you want my effort to be in the strategies and tactics to deploy what you need to get to the top? Or do you want my effort just to be in the motherfucker, do your job? Where do you want my time and effort? I'm going to give you all of my time and effort, but they can't be divided. You can't catch 2 rabbits at the same time. So which one do you want me to catch? And I have to catch the priority. And right now, if you're not doing the job, that's the first priority. Then the next one is going to be the strategy. So where do you want my focus as a coach? Because you're only going to get one version of me.
Right. And I think that has to be that collaboration of you and the athlete, or you and the business associate, whatever it might be. If you're in that leadership position, you can't lead with an iron fist. You have to have that person let you know, this is what I need from you. And then you can better calibrate what you need from them. And that's how you're going to be able to move forward. I'm wondering how you've applied, like, because I look at the businesses that you run, and we spoke briefly about a few of them. It doesn't matter if you're coaching an athlete or you're the CEO of the company, you still assume the role as coach.
Always. Matter of fact, it's actually the language in my companies that they call me coach or Kav. Believe it or not, in the sport environments, most people call me Kav.
Okay.
In the business environment, most people call me coach. And what it is, so there's a lot of reasons for that. You imagine walking into an executive board meeting and they walk around and be like, hey, John over there, and Mike Allen's over there, and then Dr. This is over there, and whoever's over there. And then, oh, that's coach. I got some, sure. Yeah, I got their attention. Early in my career, I used to wear a hoodie and sweats, and I realized that was not showing up in my best self. It was me showing up basically saying, hey, look at me. I'm just as smart as you, and I'm a coach in a hoodie and sweats. And it wasn't what I wanted to be. It made my job harder because I like to be kind of, I like the underdog, kind of mentality.
Why do you think I have neck tattoos and hand tattoos? That's exactly why.
Yeah. And I like that mentality. I really enjoyed this kind of idea of surprising people. Like, oh, you're the dumb jock. My background's in biology with a concentration in neuroscience. That's nobody's business until we start having a conversation and we can actually break down cellular function and have a little, cool talk. And they're like, I didn't know you were a nerd. I'm like, oh my God, someone called me a nerd. That's like the coolest thing ever. Yeah. Because I don't think, like, I would have never thought that I considered, because my friends that are nerds, They're way smarter than me. My wife speaks 7 languages. I'm reminded by her on a regular basis that I could barely speak one. So there's a sense of, pride that I have when you start to like surprise people. Early in my career, I used to surprise them by the way I used to look.
Mhm.
And now I realize, like, okay, it's doing me and the organization a disservice by not showing up at a professional level. It doesn't elevate that role. You saw me there at Swiss when you were presenting. Here's a great example regarding body. If you guys saw Paul present, man was literally in slacks, tight shirt, literally looked the part, clean cut. Definitely had his sleeves taken in a little bit so that it looked a little bit tucked on the shoulders. Yes, it did.
They
Yes,
were
it did.
not. They were
Yes,
not.
they were. Yes, they were. Let's just, he was doing little easy curls in the back to make sure he looked good amongst everyone else. And don't worry, that's all coming from jealousy. It's all right. It's the greatest form of flattery.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, I mean, it's not rocket science. He showed up like that because he was on that panel. And then when he needed to kind of be around the crowd and be welcome to be an environment, he was in shirts and a t-shirt and a crossbody. Right. And it was like, all right, cool. He still had his signature style. He still was himself, but he wasn't trying to distract, which a lot of people do. He was trying to distract from the attention from the wrong area. He was all about being a man of service. And I'm acknowledging that because I see those things. I showed up in a suit.
Yep.
Right. I'm giving a presentation on rehab. I know that there's doctors in the audience. And once I'm done with that, I'm taking that off and put my hat back on. Yeah. I'm actually more comfortable in a hoodie and sweats, but I understand that it's also good for me to be less comfortable. It's very good for me to be in an environment that I'm not as comfortable. Sometimes I have to put a uniform on that I'm not as comfortable in so that I could assume that presence and elevate my game. A lot of times being the underdog, I have that confidence of like, I'm going to surprise attack them. But what ends up happening is then I basically understand that anything is good enough. And I don't want to be that. I want to challenge myself to show up and embody that on a regular basis because that's difficult for me. And I almost choose to put myself in a harder environment. And sometimes that environment is just close.
So that resonates a lot with me so I mentioned I worked in disability rehab. So that was both mental and physical disability. So I went from motherfucking kids in the weight room.
You're not trying to make fun of me, right? Because
no,
okay, cool. It's okay. My mom told me I took the special bus. I didn't understand what you meant later.
So I went from motherfucking kids in a Division I weight room to trying to convince Sally that it was safe for her to go outside because of her agoraphobia. And I realized, like, okay, if I want to resonate with this person, I need to dress the part. I need to soften the way I look. I wore my glasses. I made sure I was clean shaven, long sleeve shirt, slacks, all the nine. I said, okay, now the message is being received a little bit better. I like starting behind the 8 ball. I like when people look at me and assume that I'm stupid, assume that I'm hard-nosed. But I also recognize that that is their immediate assumption. And that allows me to recalibrate and take an even more, like, we'll call it I don't want to call it a soft approach because it's not soft. It's more so.
I think it's more adaptive. I think what you're doing is so put that into perspective, right? So to that environment though, say whatever you want, you're fucking intimidating.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
So in that environment, you're intimidating. You walk into a college weight room, you hold a certain presence that people look up to. So that intimidation becomes an authority, whereas the other intimidation becomes insecurity.
Yes.
So it's like, where do you want your leverage? Do you want your leverage to become anxiety, or do you want your leverage to become adrenaline? They're the same neurotransmitter.
Yep.
Adrenaline and anxiety are the exact same components and pathways. There's no difference at the neurotransmitter level. It's how you receive that and what you do with it. That's a conscious decision. But the actual chemical structure and what happens in the brain, nothing changes.
Right.
So I would argue that what you're doing is you're allowing them a chance to start the conversation on first base. Whereas a lot of people show up with this intimidating factor. And I think that's a critical thing for us, is as coaches, we have to understand how we show up. And that matters just as much as the way we want our athletes to show up too. So if I want my athlete to show up more prepared, It's like, hey, I want you to wear this type of clothing on a regular basis because you're going to feel better when you train. And
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with environments where they don't have enough clothes, so we just tell our elite guys to say, hey, listen, I want you to pass down some stuff. You guys do a bunch of Salvation Army's donations. Let's give it to these guys and teach them how to show up. This is where I do think that social media could train the younger generation in a positive way.
Absolutely.
Because if you could get kids to stop consuming and actually start producing, they will dress better. If you could get kids to stop consuming and start documenting, they will be more accountable because someone else is going to respond back and be like, yo, what you eating today? If you every day show up what you're having, someone's going
I
to
love that.
respond back. But we don't think about it like that. We just think that this, jackhat's just, on his phone all the time. So the question is, do you want them to be, consuming, right? Or do you want them to be producing? And for me, we want them to be producing. But if they are going to consume, here's the question for the coaches that are insecure about stuff online. Are you going to be bitching, moaning, and complaining that they're consuming some, jackass trainer that's doing some dumbass shit that doesn't get results, but he has a shit ton of followers on social? And you're watching this kind of guru approach or this expert approach? I tell people all the time, it's like, hey, you guys say everybody's cutting edge. Dude, maybe you're so far on the cutting edge that you don't even know if it works yet because you haven't trained anybody. You're so far advanced that we just don't know if it's going to work, that it's like, wow, it's the next great thing.
I think you're giving them a little bit too much of a benefit of the doubt on that one, but
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I would why don't you show up so that they're attracted to you because they have a skill that you don't have, which is called likability. Stop being a prick.
relatability, likability. And that's one thing that okay. So one thing that I really resonated with me about sitting on that panel, and I'd love for you to speak to it, was all of us on that panel knew exactly who we were speaking to and how to speak to them. We did it frequently across multiple mediums. We did it very consistently, and we've done it for a very long period of time.
So true.
That's the difference between why we were on that stage and why there were people in the crowd. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, not only do I agree, I think that we need to double down on that. I think people that don't have that platform, it's not because they weren't giving, it's not a good or a bad opportunity. It's their preparation for the opportunity. They were not prepared. So I didn't tell this story, but for those that know how I got my start at Swiss, I snuck into my first Swiss in Canada. I broke my back. L4, L521 was completely handicapped. I lived at Dr. Irina Korsovskaya's house. She recovered me. And during that window in the early 2000s, she was doing these kind of trade shows, and we were at another event where she would, she was a naturopath and she was a medical doctor as well.
Yeah,
So
I heard her speak. Yeah.
Oh, so she's incredible and life-changing person, literally has saved my life multiple times. And kind of snuck my way into this little powerlifting or strength coach symposium for Kairos. It was weird. It didn't make sense back then.
Yeah.
And years later, I came back with Ken and I told him I'm going to bring a bunch of people once he kind of started it back up again. And brought multiple people and kind of overpaid because I was like, hey man, I was this kid that didn't have money and I, snuck in to get a seat. And he did a rehab panel and he goes, Ken never asked for anything. I have been around him for years. He doesn't ask anyone for anything. So he looks at me, and mind you, every day I'm like, hey, what do you need? How can I help? Can I help? I'm good. Everything's great. And he goes, yes. I'm like, oh shit. I was like, I never thought this opportunity would come. Ken Atkin's going to ask me for help. I get to serve. So he's like, yeah, we have the rehab panel going right now. We got to take the stuff off the stage. Can you help me bring these chairs to the stage? I was so grateful for the opportunity to give back by carrying something for him that it made me so happy.
Mm-hmm.
I put the chair down and he goes, good, now sit down. You're presenting. What? Shit a brick right there. That was the first time I got on stage. Is he goes, good, sit in. And then you're like, oh crap. Now the cool part about it is, why was that such a good opportunity? Well, for a decade before that, I was coaching every day.
Yeah.
So if I didn't coach, I would have never been able to go on stage and just show up.
Exactly.
I would have had to, in my head, oh my God, what am I presenting? I would have been like, all right, what's the problem? Do my job. and then talk louder. Instead of talking to the client that was on the table, I was talking to the audience. So yeah, I had experience presenting before, but the nervousness of that room, it's a little bit harder when you have the people that you look up to in the room that you're working
Yes.
on. So that's how my Swiss journey started. And I think that out of just respect for that, you kind of have to pay homage and be like, dude, whatever I could do to serve. And now my job in Ken's world is not serving via bringing up chairs. It's serving by trying to get the next generation back into that world and bring them up there. So I brought on, Dr. Dylan Seeley, who literally was an intern. And I brought up Dr. Lars Stevenson, who was an athlete of mine and played, college football. And now he's going to, now he's a doctor. So it's like you bring those people up on stage. Malin Donovan, who I think is one of the best in the world. Like you bring those people on stage. This is where like I met Dr. Danny last year. And it's like you bring those people to your world and you put them on stage because they're the best at what they do.
Yes.
And you want to just kind of bring those people there. That's my service now. It's not the education anymore.
You want to know how I met Maylin?
Oh, I do.
She worked for the same insurance company that I worked for, and we did the same job.
No way.
Yeah, this was back in 2015, 16.
That's awesome.
Before she went in full time on her own business.
That's crazy. I mean, it's nuts. I met her through Chris and kind of going through that evolution of Christian's career. Thibodeau went from being, fat, fully haired, guy to Olympic coach and then working and doing his thing to, in my opinion, one of the smartest guys that was able to kind of grab attention and do great work. But he's a great coach. Like he was an Olympic, lifting coach. He did a great job in my opinion, he did a great job in the sports performance world. And that's probably where his heart is, but that's not what he's known for.
No, he's not.
I think he was too soon.
He goes like this. I taught him how to do the captions on his videos.
That's classic. So it's like you meet these people and you realize they're not only are they great people, but there's so much they could offer you. And you just have to be grateful for the chance to be around them.
And you got to reciprocate.
Of course. I think oftentimes people don't do that.
No, not at all. And like, oh man, there's so many rabbit holes that we could go down there, but I want to kind of circle back a little bit into, so you started off coaching, you're a coach at heart, you still coach, but now you've branched into other aspects of your business.
Sure.
I do a lot of business coaching now with young coaches looking to build their online businesses. And once they've established some sort of stability, it's always what's next. And I wanted to ask, what your trajectory was from a business perspective and how you moved from one stage to the next.
That's a great question. So for me, in my kind of experience, I was really good at coaching. And then you realize that you're not good at sales. So you had to become good at sales. And then when you're really good at sales, you're not good at marketing. And then you had to become really good at marketing. And then you're really good at marketing, but you're not really good at the actual business operations. And then you become somewhat competent at that, which I don't think I am yet there. And then you move into the finance side and it evolves over time. I've learned that I've bolted on businesses into my life. Most people will tell you that you cannot run a brick and mortar facility with just sports performance and be successful. For 20 years, I ran a company that 95% of our business was sports performance and 5% was general population. And we crushed it. We did more money than most people do today in different industries. So, for us to do 2 commas in the sports performance world, right, not compromising the integrity of the quality of our training and watering it down, high discipline, high level work, putting hundreds of kids a year into college, working with tons and tons of pros across multiple different sports and disciplines, having an internship, having a coaching program, bringing in certifications. Most people didn't think that was possible. I didn't listen to what they had to say.
No.
I didn't care. That's what I wanted to do. We're going to make it work. And then we started to bolt on components in our business, which is where, the business part of the work I did started to come. I learned marketing in 2011. Years before that, I knew a guy named Sam Caucci. Sam Caucci After his internship, went to work at a place called Perfect Competition. They crushed me. I was down in Miami. We had built 39 different locations. I could not stand this guy. When I say I couldn't stand him, Paul, I wanted to beat the shit out of him. He went to a rival high school. He, went and played college football, I think, at Alabama. He literally came and was selling sports performance. So he was a full-time sales guy, and he would crush me. And I hated him. And then he then went on to work with Bill Parisi and Martin Rooney.
Okay.
And we ended up going and doing dinner together one day in New Jersey. And it was like, dude, I'm tired of getting my ass beat by you. Let's work together. And he taught me a lot on business. And now he went on to build a company that was originally called Sales Huddle, now called One Huddle, and is one of the best kind of, human behavior change models for, all different types of service-based businesses, and made connections amongst different people. 2011, another introduction from him to someone else was like, hey, you two need to meet. And when someone that you trust is teaching you so much and says, hey, you guys need to meet, you pay attention. So emails got exchanged, and the guy's like, hey, yeah, let's do a quick meeting. We'll do a go-to meeting. It was like a go-to webinar back
then.
Yeah. And I was like, cool, I'm down. It's Monday. We'll do a quick call. He goes, or you could come to my office. I'm in New York. So I'm like, cool. I could take the train there. I'm in DC. I could take the train there and see you. I did. I walked in that guy's office. Fast track many years later. That conversation was supposed to be short, turned into 2.5 hours, and a great relationship. That guy's Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh,
I know a little bit about marketing now.
He's pretty popular from what I understand.
Yeah. So again, I'm not getting my sources from somebody who sucks or superficial. I think Gary, mark my words and put this online, I think Gary V is full of shit. And here's why. Online, if you think he's good, in person, he's 10 times better.
I don't doubt it.
Let me tell you something. Everybody, you could say whatever you want. You could think he's amazing. I think he's full of crap online because he's not even close to who he is in person. In person, he's actually so much better. The context and the level of, look, a skill I don't have. I fight it. It's hard. I got bottles of wine on my wall that have the damn word on it, which is empathy. And I don't have that. When I tell you that he has the ability to take empathy and context and marry them together at such a unique level, and then give something very practical to you, is such a unique skill that it makes for such powerful decision-making, because your frame of reference now is like, this guy's not in it for him. He's basically giving me something that's actually so practical, it could crush him if the person took his advice. And he doesn't worry about that. He doesn't worry about knocking anybody down. He's just saying, hey, here's how I did it. Here's the framework, not the way I did it. Here's what you should do. And he's so contextually on point that I think his online content is garbage, because in person, he's so much better. And when you find really good coaches, unlike the earlier stages of this conversation, when people are too young and they're presenting like there's something too soon,
right?
Or where they move away from coaching and now they're just in the business space, or they're just in the speaking space, or they're just in the online presence, educational space. They remove themselves from coaching. There's an identity crisis and a disconnect, right? That when you actually get with them in person, they're a good 1 hour talk and they're very superficial, and that's it. So what you really want to do is you want to find a coach that when you're with them in person, it just gets better and better and better and deeper and deeper and deeper. Not, dude, I could have just went online and bought your course. You want someone that basically goes, dude, there's a lot of information. And then when I get you in person, your brain just goes poof. That's what you're looking for. So I would say seek and find that. So what I did is I found that. And then I started to layer that on to businesses that helped other parts of my business. And that's all it is. So now, I run AthleteHQ, which again is working with the most elite athletes in the world. It's working with Olympians. That's a full-time job.
Right.
So then I built, from a business standpoint, an organization that has Gary Mahabir. He's 50 plus years old and he's shredded. Guy's super healthy, does the part, great guy. And he runs our executive program, and he's coaching CEOs, he's coaching executives, he's coaching business owners. And then we do everything. You know, we use Merrick to do all of our blood work. So now we have a team of doctors that are
Right.
overseeing our executives, and they're catering to everything they need. We have direct to the door supplementation that is curated based upon their blood work. So now we've built a dashboard and we're not
Saw
guessing.
that. Yeah.
And then we take that and then we have a coaching element on top of it. So, and then from me, my role in that capacity is more on the mindset and the optimization of their lifestyle strategies.
Mhm.
So we just start layering and layering. But all we did is take the same strategies and tactics that we taught professional athletes and give it to executives.
Mhm.
And then from there, hey, had an opportunity to grow some things. And with a partner of mine in the tech space, we bought Sites at Scale, which is an Australian-based company that does websites and brand building and content and everything else. That's an area that I know well. I have good operational skills. So, you know, we just took that over and now we're going to be expanding that Australian market and we're going to expand that to it globally and take it to the US because there's a need for it here. So everything I do is basically aligned together. There's nothing that's like, we do this, we do this, we do this, and then we do some weird shit over there. It may seem like that, but they're actually, quite synergistic when they integrate them together.
So that's actually the advice that I give to anyone looking to maybe, produce another service or an adjunct product or something like that, is to not look at your business in terms of verticals, but rather to look at your business in terms of an ecosystem. So, and within that ecosystem, you always have to put yourself in there too, right? So I have my own life, my wife, my own personal pursuits. Then I have my coaching, I have my mentorship, I have my education site, I have my other coaches. All of these things make me money. But I know that if I boost one of them, it feeds into the other. And if that one goes up, it feeds back and it feeds forward and and everything grows together. So what you're essentially telling me is you've just built all these other businesses or bolted on, as you said, to feed into all of the rest of the things that you do. Obviously, if you buy a branding and site building branding company, obviously it's going to build your first business.
Yeah, it becomes so I built the way that business worked, which was really good, is the guy who founded it 9 years ago was a friend of mine who I met through another mentor in Australia. And he built an incredible business, but he's a great personality and he's got a high technical skill. So there's gaps in the business now that weren't there before when he was in it. But he helped me build my company next to his
Mm,
overseas, which allowed me, the opportunity to grow at scale, which was really nice. That company was a marketing company. It was called Start Right. It's a brand building company that basically builds brands to dominate the space. And it's very much around taking two concepts, your personality and your professionalism, and combining them. We just want your professional image and your personal image, and we just want to marry the two so that your personality shows up on stage. That's it. We don't want you to be fake. That's our main goal. And we want to make sure that when people see that, they go, that's cool. That's what I
yeah.
want people to say, because the right people will say something's cool. For instance, if you're not into country music, you're not going to listen to a country song and be like, I love that. Let's keep playing it. If you're not into hip hop, you're not going to be like, turn that up.
You're not
But
in a
when
hip hop, you're a loser, but
well,
okay.
that's a fact. Yeah. So, and for me, if I hear songs that I like, ooh, that kind of jives with me, we're going to be like, hey, turn that volume up. Cool factor is individual. So you're going to immediately create a filtering mechanism to the people that you want to work with if you create something that is attached to your professionalism and personality. And that's all we're trying to do. So he helped me build that. And in his business, the probably biggest gap is marketing, not because he's bad at marketing, but he's so good at another skill that he
Right.
didn't need it. Like the majority of his business is internal referrals or when he's presenting on stage. So now I could take that marketing part of my business and then layer it on the new business that we just took over.
Mm-hmm.
And now both of those combined allow for the engine to all of the other entities we have now too.
Yep.
So yes, it does client work. That's where 90% of it work's going to be. It's going to be client facing work,
Right.
but we're also going to use it internally to then grow. So we get to layer that on top of any of the businesses that we have. And now we have we have an e-commerce department, we have, a web department, we have a content department, we have a marketing arm. Obviously we have a web hosting side of things and we have a dev shop. So collectively, we literally could kind of build anything and sell anything on the internet now, which is a skill that I didn't have. So I acquired that from someone else that already built that. He did all the hard work for me. And now I get to do what I'm better at and layer
Right.
those things together. And the cool part about it is the people there are incredible. I was like, we took a flight over there to the facility, and I say facility because I'm in the coaching space, right? That's
It's
the
an
way I'm thinking, but
office.
it's an office. Yeah. So we got pretty cool office, like 4-story building, super nice. We get in there, and you're always worried about like, oh my God, do I have to clean house? What type of people are there? Are they gonna,
Right.
number one is like, are they gonna put up with my personality? But I get there and I'm just like, I look over to Kane and I go, dude, am I crazy? These people are great. And it's like he built such a good culture and he built such a good environment that the people are awesome. Now we just want to give them the tools, make their life a little bit better, give them more power, expand the company. But meeting, some of the people there, whether it be Carrie or Beth or Eileen and some of the other people in the business, you're just like, dude, these people are rock stars. So how do we like double down on that?
Yeah.
And when you could solve the people problem in your business, and you have the right people, I have Courtney in my team that handles all of our processes. It's like, dude, people, product, process, like you could check those boxes. Like all you're trying to do is make it simple.
Hmm.
The genius is in the simplicity, and we overcomplicate stuff all the time. But it's like, how do we kind of expand and contract this knowledge so that it makes sense and stays connected? But that's all I did.
I love it. I love it. I want to be mindful of time, and this is a question that I really wanted to ask you because I asked it to you at Swiss, and I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. So you mentioned I asked you about boundaries and how you set boundaries between your business and your life. Obviously, you're a married man, so there are expectations on that side of time and energy and presence. And I personally believe that the boundaries that I set for myself and my business have allowed me to thrive as a person, which then allows me to thrive as a business owner. And you mentioned the word lighthouse, which immediately was a light bulb for me because I have a lighthouse tattoo on my arm for this exact reason. I'm wondering if you could, speak to what you feel are the lighthouses in your life and how those keep you aligned towards yourself and your goals.
Absolutely. So for me, I grew up on the water and I love the water. And the idea of drowning is probably one of my biggest fears. And yet I love scuba diving and I love kind of taking those things to a limit, which is funny because I like to push it. And when you're on a boat and you're sailing, you have your sail up, you got your rudder, you got some, steering wheel, and you got to kind of have your compass and move things around. You got to have your North Star, right? That's going to help you get to where you need to be. And a lot of times people think that you want to have your rocks in your life, that the big people in your life that you take them with you. And the truth of it is you're not ready for all of them. Like the boat can't hold all of those people.
Mm.
As a boat kind of sailing through the channel, the lighthouse is there to protect you from the rocks. It's there to let you know, hey, here's where I am. But my job as a lighthouse is not to blind you. My job is to remind you that you're walking into a danger zone and you're getting a little bit of too close for comfort, and it's putting you in check. And your job is to move past those things. So I have lighthouses in my life that keep me on point. They keep me aligned to my vision. They keep me. There's a reality check to the effort that I put in, keeping me honest. And you talked about boundaries. I believe in work-life integration, not work-life balance, because anybody that's in perfect harmony and balance
Mm.
probably isn't going to be that successful. That's just a reality
Yeah,
check.
for sure.
You're going to have to be a little bit crazy and go all in. So what happens is as I'm a boat sailing through that channel, I have a lighthouse for finance in my life. Right. And as I get a little too, close to the shore and it becomes problematic,
Keep
that
flexing too much.
person's job, that person's job is to spin that light around and remind me I'm getting close to the rocks. And then as my boat is going towards another direction as a part of my life, because there's seasons in your life that you focus on different things. And then you just start to learn the kind of channels in the waterway. As you go through the next kind of channel, maybe your health is deteriorating. So you have a Dr. Serrano in your life who's been in my world for a long time, and he keeps me in check way more than health. He keeps me in check in so many other areas as well. But I'm just super grateful to have that kind of sounding board to reach out to when it comes to, you know, um, realizing that you have a family, realizing that there's going to be boundaries. I have a 6-year-old and everyone's like, hey, once you're a dad, you're not going to be able to work as hard. I disagree. I think you're going to work harder. I
Yeah.
think you're just going to work smarter. And for me, one of the things that I noticed is that my time efficiency went through the roof the minute I had a child. And it's like one of the greatest gifts, because emotions that you didn't think you had, you didn't know you had, actually were kind of, those cells kind of opened up and you go, man, this is different. It's absolutely one of the things that 100% changed me. If you knew me before and you know me now, there is part of me that is a massive shift. And I'm very grateful for that. And it's been a challenge and a blessing every single day. And it just gets better and better and better. But because of that, I have an integrity test every day I come home. When I come home from that door, my wife is putting me in check and being like, what did you do today? Is it aligned with your mission, your vision, your values, and the integrity and character of this family? Because if you're going to go tell something out to the world and you're not going to do it, that's my job. And she sits there and she stands there and that's her job. And it is hard, because there's some days where you can't even look at her and go, fuck, I can't lie to you. I don't even need to say anything out of my mouth, but I know I didn't put the work in I should have. And when you have that kind of, that level of kind of synergy between somebody where there's no word that needs to be spoken, now you understand you have somebody that cares about you, loves you, and has your back. So for me, you got to have those lighthouses. I tell people that you have to have a power 5. So I think a lot of times people don't do this, but in order to keep your lighthouses where you could actually see them, you got to be moving. Because if you're sitting in the channel and you're not moving and that boat is anchored, well, then you're never going to run into those lighthouses in your life, because you're never going to move into certain stages. You're going to be anchored at shore. So the power 5 that I share with coaches is the same thing I make my executives do. But for coaches, I do believe that you have to create your power 5. And for me, these are mine. These are not, don't go take these and just use them. Yeah, they work, but they're what work for my soul. They're what work for me. Right. So every day I have to do these 5 things. And number 1 is read. Before I let the world and the news be put into my brain, I have to decide the direction of how I want my frame to be thinking. Yep. So I got to create my lens. And the only way I could create my lens is the perspective in which I'm going to look at the world by having information I'm digesting that I choose.
Love that.
So number 1 is read. Number 2 is move. If I forget to move, it's a problem. I mean, I beat my body up. I had a lot of fun in my career, but it's a lot easier to keep an old hinge greased than let one get rusty. And I've been through enough surgeries to tear out some rust and change some things, and it's not fun. So I have to move every day. The third thing is write. So I need to put pen to paper and write some things down, whether it be gratitude or whether it be notes for the day or things that you're trying to accomplish. At the end of the day, I need to have my brain and my body connected and put it on paper where it lives. The fourth thing is eat. I will forget to eat. It's just part of I forget to eat all the time.
Yeah. You're fucking nuts. I eat 6 times a day religiously on a clock.
Yeah. And so January, of this year, I was 275 pounds and I'm 208 right now. Yeah. And my wife looked at me again. You want to talk about an integrity test? End of January, she looked at me and she goes, "You're fucking fat. Fix it." And I lost 50, and I lost 50 pounds by my son's birthday in May. And she said, "Cool, you got to be 225 by May and you got to be 205 by your birthday. And you got to keep it off by my birthday, which is in December." So it was a perfect window. So I was 225, I was 275, I was 255. Or 225 by my son's birthday. I was 205 by my birthday, and I'm going to be, I'll stay that weight. I'm 208 right now because I had a good time at Swiss, and I'm going to stay that way going into her birthday, which is in December. And I'm going to keep that off because that was my commitment to her. She didn't tell me get a trainer. She didn't tell me stop eating. She didn't tell me you need to go work out. She said, "You're fat. You need to fix it. You know what you need to do." She trusts that I know what I need to do. And
I should hope you know what you need to do.
Yeah. Like if I don't know what to do, I'm screwed.
Yeah, there's a fucking problem.
Yeah. So, but I need to eat. I forget to eat,
Okay.
And I'm a big guy. I like to eat. I like to eat a lot and I like to be big. So I don't have any body image issues. But if I don't fuel myself, then it becomes a problem. And in order for me to do that, I got to eat boring. Yeah. I got to eat the same thing over and over all the time. I will wear that out and I don't get bored of it because I understand it's the discipline that I have to adhere to. And to me, the athletes that have the most success are the ones that are willing to do the boring stuff for the longest. and then have those incremental changes. So that's number 4. And the 5th one to my power 5 is probably the one that people do the least and is probably the most important, and that is pray. As a man, you're going to try to find your human limit. As a man, you want to kind of find your boundaries, and you're going to test your boundaries, and you're going to have something that's going to keep you in line. If your ego gets the most of you, you're going to have a higher power that you're talking to. And whatever that means to you, you'll find it. But for me, it's kind of my relationship. And my relationship is I need to kind of openly talk about that to myself, maybe not to the world, because if I don't do those 5 things, then faith without work is dead. James 23. So I got to put the work in.
I love that. I'm trying to think of what my 5 are. Our first 4 are the exact same, but
you forget to eat.
No, no, but I know for me, fuel, like food, is the discipline associated with food is a direct correlate to my discipline in the rest of my life. Yeah. I'm a big believer that, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if I'm going to be disciplined in one area of my life, I need to be disciplined in all areas of my life. I'm going to think on that.
And I don't have that. Like, to be super transparent, if you ask me where I am in regarding doing something I don't like, I'm horrible. So if that was a representation of how I do everything, I suck. But if you try to interact with me in a certain area, I'm going to be on point because that's my jam. But if you act, I don't do a lot of things that I don't like to do. And I'm fortunate to be in an environment
you've cultivated that ability for sure.
I'm very good at manifesting what I want through action and creating an environment where those are the only things that could live. So I don't let anything live or gain traction in my world if it's cancerous to my life. I don't. I cut it out quick.
I learned to do that.
Yeah, it takes some time. It takes some time. So for me, a good example, regarding food is I could not eat I could fast for 10 days. The first 3, I'll be miserable, and then I'm good. And it's crazy, but you have to get through that pain point. I try to do that about once a year.
10 days?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I cheat though. I do water and coffee, and then I take amino code from Jason Deere's Ultra Human. So it's a little bit of a cheat code because I feel good. I'm getting the energy I need. But I feel like shit for the first 3 days. And then after that, I feel great. And then I go, okay. And then it gets to about, then I'm not hungry. I remember we did it as a staff. We did a challenge where I said, hey, you guys could do it, whatever you want. And I'll finish at the 10-day mark and we'll all eat at the house. So some of them started the day before the fast. Jackasses. But the cool part is like at the end of it, you feel great. You don't realize it, but obviously you need fuel to drive at a high performance level. So it's just a reminder that your body could do some things that if you put your mind to it, your body could do so many things that you didn't think were possible. And I'm a big believer of like constantly flexing, not just your muscles, but your discipline.
Yeah. I mean, I think having an area of your life where you're able to flex that discipline, whether it's food or with training or with some sort of disciplinary action, doing things you don't want to do, because ultimately, like, we need to manufacture some stress in this nerfed life that we live.
Absolutely. And it's flexing the discipline that you have to reach out to people like anybody, but with me, I'm very grateful for that. And if it weren't for the discipline you have to say, hey, I'm going to do this and then actually follow through, we wouldn't have these conversations, and that relationship is probably going to grow just because of that. So I'm grateful for it. And I just want to say thank you for your time.
So I have a few quick hit questions that I finish all the podcasts with. The first one being, do you crack an egg on a flat surface or on the corner of the pan?
I'm a flat surface guy.
Good man. One album you could listen to, no skips.
American Gangster, most underrated Jay-Z album of all time.
American Gangster. Okay. Top 5, dead or alive. You, a dinner table, 5 guests.
My great grandmother, Haiti. She passed at 98. She was, oldest oldest of 22 brothers and sisters straight from Cuba. I savor every single moment that I've ever had with her. I made a promise to myself I would see her as much as I could when I was in first grade, and God let her, kept her with us for such a long time. And I took advantage of those moments. So I don't regret anything, but I would always take those moments back. Winston Churchill.
Popular guy in this
Be,
question.
yeah, would be number two. I think the easy one is Jesus, right? But I think that would be pretty scary, but just to understand kind of, what that life's like. Julius Caesar would be number four. And then number five would be my grandfather, Thomas, who passed before I was born, who, my son's named after, 6'6" Irish guy, big red beard, and World War II, Purple Heart veteran. Didn't have a chance to meet him. And I could just see the similarities. I was able to live with understanding who he was as a man because of the lessons passed down.
Wow.
And I kind of want to go back and see what that's like.
That's powerful. The last question, if you could see anyone on this podcast, who would it be, with the caveat that you have to help me get them on?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm going to throw one out there that I don't think has been on your podcast, but I do believe that they would be an incredible guest. And I'm going to put two out there.
Okay.
I'm going to say Coach Nicole Rodriguez, because I brought her up.
Okay.
And it's a completely different audience for you guys.
Okay.
But she was at Boyles for a long time, and then she ran Exos as in education, and she is a badass coach. Dr. Adam Feit.
Dude, I know Adam Feit.
Yeah, I would say Adam, who I don't think has been on your podcast.
He hasn't, but he's totally going to be.
Adam is Adam is one of the rare people that I think he is so much better than where he gets his credit for. And I would feel comfortable with him. Those are the two people that if I had to give the keys to, a gym at any consideration, I could trust that no matter what happens, they're going to do the job. And no matter what the role is. Dude, meaning I could give them the keys. I could give them the keys to anything in my life, and I'm confident that they would take care of it.
This world is so small, as if like Adam Feit was the name out of your mouth. Adam and I had the same boss, Frank Wintrick.
No shit.
Yeah, Adam worked for Frank at the Citadel. And then I worked for Frank at South Florida. And I know Adam through that.
Wow. I didn't even know that. And I think that's awesome. That's cool.
Very cool.
I was trying to pick people that I was confident are not in your world.
Dude, Adam's a G. Kav, man, I cannot thank you enough for your time. I'm grateful for this new friendship, and I'm hopeful that this relationship will continue to grow. I've already learned a ton from you, and we've talked for less than 2 hours total. So I can only imagine.
Appreciate it. I'm gonna throw one out there because I don't think you know Ben. Ben Mayfield Smith from Australia. He's in the bodybuilding world. He owns Matter Athletica. And he's the bodybuilding guy of Australia and the coaching world. And he's an incredible human, but an incredible conversationalist, which you guys could dive into coaching and into the science, because he's a great teacher. But I would say those are three people that I didn't think were in your world, and only one of them hit your market. And the other two, I think, are skills in which you deliver and teach to your people every day. So you could find parallels.
That'd be amazing. Dude, thank you so much. I have how to get a hold of you on Instagram, your two websites, and a link to your book in the show notes. So if anyone needs to get a hold of Kav, that's where you can do it. Thank you so much to everyone for listening to the Coach's Corner U podcast. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe. And thank you again, Kav. Have a great day, everyone.